Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the Michigan Co-op Winter Virtual Conference. This first session we have this morning, Dr. Betsy Springer is going to be talking about AI and how it impacts your role specifically, how you can be using it. But before we get into Betsy's presentation, I'd like to have Kathy from Lincoln Learning just talk about some things that they have. And they, as the sponsor for this session, Lincoln Learning picked this session specifically because of the AI component. And so I'm excited to hear about what they have. So Kathy, go ahead. I just stopped sharing my screen, so you should be able to get on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, first to sponsor the virtual conference, but just to also be present here for this discussion. We are very excited to share with you a new product that we do have. So you may be aware that Lincoln Learning Solutions provides digital curriculum, early kindergarten through 12th grade. But as we have gone through the new awareness of AI and how it's impacting our schools, Lincoln did a thoughtful approach and created a product that I'm excited to share with you today. So, across districts, we're seeing challenges, maybe increasing student needs, maybe staffing shortages, learning gaps, and the pressure to personalize instruction, all while protecting student integrity and student data. So today we want to introduce you to the Lincoln Learning Coach. It's an education first AI learning support designed with teachers, designed to work with teachers and not to replace teachers. So think of it as like an always available academic support that helps students stay engaged. It allows students to ask questions and to move forward, especially during that independent work time. So before I show you kind of a quick video of Lincoln AI Learning Coach, I want to make sure that I'm very clear about what the Learning Coach is and what it isn't. The Learning Coach is not a generic chatbot. It doesn't pull in answers from the open internet, and it does not replace teachers or your curriculum. Instead, it is trained on the Lincoln content and curriculum, so student responses stay aligned to what they're actually being taught. And the coach guides student along by explaining and breaking down concepts, modeling thinking, providing that scaffolding, and asking questions so that students can arrive at the answers independently. It's a place where students can, if they're afraid to ask a question in the classroom, or, they just need something explained again, the learning coach will be there by their side at all times. So I'd like to share just a video just to introduce the Learning Coach so that you can see kind of the impact it could have on your classrooms. I'm just going to share my screen here and share with system audio, entire screen.
Have you ever wished your students had their own personal learning coach, someone who's there whenever they need help? Well, now they do. Hi, I'm Link, the learning coach. If a student gets stuck on a question at 9 p.m., I'm right there with them. Actually, I'm here 24/7, anytime, anywhere. When students work with me, they get support built on a vetted, standards-aligned curriculum. I keep them focused, on track, and engaged. I even provide learning resources, such as games and interactive learning activities, to help them practice applying challenging concepts. I also give them room to explore at their own pace and ask any questions they might hesitate to ask in class. And don't worry, I don't just hand out answers like other AI tools. Instead, I guide students with thoughtful prompts and questions that help them think critically and learn more deeply. Safety and security, those are also top priorities. I'm built with custom safeguards designed specifically for education, so students can learn confidently and safely. And the benefits don't stop at the students. I support teachers by answering the repetitive questions that can interrupt class time. Think of me as a virtual classroom assistant, ready to give personalized responses and scalable help whenever it's needed. As your student's learning coach, I can even walk them through specific homework problems by providing guided support. Give your students a learning space where they can build confidence, stay engaged, and grow into independent thinkers. So, are you ready to see what I can do? Come on in and ask me a question.
Oh, you're still
Yeah.
muted.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So I hope that introduction really shows you the powerful aspects of the product and how it really is going to provide that guided support for students so they have the support when they need it at the times that they need it. We're very excited about this product and we'd love to connect with anybody who's interested in learning more. I just want to thank you for the time today and I appreciate the willingness to be here with everyone at this conference today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Betsy, the woman of the hour.
All right, thanks everybody for being with me. I gotta, once you hit share, Zoom rearranges all your windows. Annoying. So let me get, hopefully you can see my screen. I can see you. So I think we're rolling around.
Yep.
All right. So I have these slides. I put them in the chat so that you can have notes because we're going to move through things pretty quickly. But I probably won't even share the slides because I want to share with you examples rather than just talking about it. I knew when I said I was going to talk about AI months ago that I had no idea what AI would be the appropriate thing today. So this is just what I've been learning in AI in the last probably 30 days. This is kind of my newest favorite AI. I'm not like I am kind of becoming a Gemini fangirl after using mostly ChatGPT. If you haven't tried Gemini, it's a little bit like that. I think Buick or somebody had a come back and try us commercial campaign for a while. Gemini used to be really boring, and around Christmas time, it really got a glow up. So if you haven't tried it since Christmas, I encourage you to go try it again. But also, most of what I'm showing you could be done in any large language model. You could do these things in ChatGPT also. I have said since I started talking about AI that there is not an AI tool that I pay for. And so now I have to update that and say that I do have a paid version of Gemini. Not on purpose, but I ran out of room in my Google Drive for my personal account. And so the only option was to upgrade for $199 a month, and it gave me Gemini Pro. So there's all the updates on my AI use, but we're going to talk about Gemini, or like I said, any large language model. Notebook LM, that one is pretty specific. I don't know of anything else that does what it does quite the same way it does it. And we're going to even throw Canva in there. I'll go through this. Really will be a journey. I'll start at very simple prompting and get more complicated until we get full nerd mode at the end. So we'll get right into it here. And all my tabs at the top are kind of my to-do list. So in Gemini, the first thing I want you to know, and like I said, this applies to all large language models, is you have different versions you can choose. So I asked the same prompt in Gemini on fast version. And I asked it to explain project-based learning, and it gave me like a back of the textbook definition. And it's about 3 screens long. So that's a basic prompt. Some people go really into prompt engineering, and I encourage you not to be intimidated by getting your prompt just right and giving the Gemini its role and all this background. That's great when you can do it, but you can just start a conversation and then iterate as you go. So the second thing you can do in Gemini is switch to thinking mode. And disclosure, even though I said I do have a paid version of Pro, I'm using my school account for all the things I'm showing you. So they should, if you're a Google district or a Google organization, they should be available to you. I don't think we as a district pay for many add-ons. So I switched to thinking mode and I said, explain project-based learning. And you can tell it thought about it a little bit because now it gives me this analogy as think of a dessert versus a main course. And then it gives me, the same information, but with a different frame. And so those are the 2 different kinds of prompts in Gemini. And I'm having a hard time like not showing you more stuff. So I'm just going to keep going. So that's basic prompting in Gemini. That's like level 1. Give it a try. Those are a few of the options that you have. Then Gemini, since it's a Google product, it can connect to your apps. So if you go into the Gemini settings, you can do things like you can tell it about yourself. You can give it instructions. So since I have an Android phone, when I use my CarPlay, it's actually Gemini that I'm talking to. And sometimes it will just like, I say it's stuck in Midwest mode because I'll say, no, thank you. And then it just like keeps, okay, if you ever want to know more about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I'm here for you. And I can tell you about, and I'm like, so I had to go into my instructions and my settings and say, when I say no, like just stop responding. But, I can tell it what my profession, what I do. You can do those things in settings. You can attach it to your Google Suite. So I attached it to my Google Suite and I asked it to create a slideshow for this presentation, the slideshow that I shared with you. I'm going to talk about Gemini, Notebook, LM, and Canva. And I said, give it a superhero theme. And so this is the slideshow that it created, the one that I shared with you. It made 13 slides. I obviously edited the content of it for what I wanted to speak about, but the layout was all done for me in minutes. It does take minutes to generate, but like I walked off, got a cup of coffee, came back, and it was done. And I do like that it also like cites the images that it uses at the end. So you can create slides right in Gemini. This is like such a huge time saver. Our new learning coach taught us this, and I am just so happy about it. It will also create documents, what you need to do if you're making a prompt. So I made this prompt. Let me show you the whole thing. There it is. And then you hit the plus sign, not the plus sign. You hit the, all right, hang on. Gonna have to go to a new one. All right, so you put in your prompt. There's where it is. I couldn't see it on the other screen. Under tools, you need to say, create this in a canvas. If you forget that spot, like I almost always do, then you just get an outline of slides you could create. And I'm like, well, that's sort of helpful, but I'd really rather you do it for me. So if you turn it into Canvas, that means it's creating some version of a Google Doc. So if you haven't tried Gemini for creating slides, it can really be a time saver. Then what's the next thing? Okay, it connects to your G Suite, which I admit, this is creepy, but if you just embrace the creepiness of it, it can be super helpful. I had this checklist. I'm writing a course and I made a checklist. I thought that would be motivating, and it motivated me for a while until it didn't. And then I got like right around here about week 9, I got burned out. So I went to Gemini. You can hit the plus and you can add files from your Google Drive or upload from your computer. So I added the file from my Google Drive. And I said, I need to make, this is actually an iteration, but I said, I'm out of motivation to do the remaining items on this checklist. Can you create can you create them a list of things that need to be done? So it found the things I still needed to do. And it said I could put that in a spreadsheet. I'm like, that wouldn't be all that helpful. So let me keep scrolling down. Where it is. Okay. All right, maybe I don't have the stuff in here. I'm going to keep talking. So I said, look at my calendar and schedule these items that remain. Put them on my calendar on days when I have less than 4 items on my calendar. Because if I have 4 appointments on my calendar, that day is probably too busy to get one of these things done. But look at only school days and put them on my calendar, and I want to be done by spring break. So it put them on my calendar. Like I didn't have to do anything. It created the calendar events for those days. But then I realized I didn't want them in my calendar. So I said, look at my calendar and create tasks, Google tasks, for those things that I have on my calendar. So it did. It removed the calendar events and instead made Google tasks with due dates and spaced it out all the way through the end date that I gave it. So if you didn't know, Gemini can connect to things like your calendar and your Google Tasks. Give that a try. That is also a huge time saver. You can take something like your kid's Little League schedule, attach it, and say, put all these games and practices in my calendar, and it'll just do it. So I find those kind of things, a school calendar, if you have a document with your school calendar in it, and you want to put it in a calendar, there are some limits to which calendars it can see. So like I have my personal calendar and my school calendar. Gemini in my personal account can look at my personal calendar, and Gemini, my school account, can only see my school calendar, which hopefully that's fixed in the future, because sometimes, I want to schedule things around my whole life and not just half of it. But so that is a limitation, but Gemini can do this. And like I said, I know ChatGPT, especially if you get into a paid version, can sync with some of your apps as well. But this is the one that I have used. It will also look at your emails. So this is my principal, Michelle, and I said, summarize my emails for Michelle Jarrow so far this year, and are there any tasks I need to address this week? And then I just let it cook. You'll see when it says show thinking, it won't load. Thanks for that. That's why I did these all ahead, because I knew if we were waiting on them, we'd never get done. But as this is spinning, when you ask the prompt, you'll see it saying like connecting to Google Apps, looking at Gmail. So you'll know which apps it's pulling from if you want to sit there and watch it. So it summarized my emails between Michelle and I. We're working on next year's catalog. And it said, for this week, you're expected to meet today with a group following the team meeting, develop a plan for auditing schedules before count day. I'm like, oh, yep, we are doing that. Be aware that Friday, February 6th is the final day for students to drop courses. She suggested talking to these people about next year's math lab. So it did all of that just by me saying, what have I talked to Michelle about so far this year? So before I go away from Gemini into Notebook LM, does anybody have any quick questions? Expand my chat. Yes, I love now I have to say that in my personal account, I have Gemini that will attach to like docs and sheets, and but then I have Gemini in like slides and sheets. That is a different Gemini. I don't understand why, but like if I was in a spreadsheet, and if I'm in Gemini and I'm like, write me a formula that'll do this really complicated thing, it spits it right out. When I'm in Sheets and I use the little Gemini in the top right-hand corner, and I'm like, why isn't my formula in D4 working? It's like, I don't know. So just know that not all Geminis are created equal. Has anybody used Notebook LM? All right, it is so much fun. So you create a notebook, but I'm going to show you one I made for our staff, and you add sources to it. It's supposed to be zero hallucination. So it is supposed to just get its answers from the brain that you give it, and not go out into the internet and make stuff up. So I put in here our handbooks, our staff roles cheat sheet, our attendance our expectations, FAQ documents we already had, the pupil accounting manual. And so you can ask it a question like, what are the graduation requirements? And it will only look at what I gave it. So this becomes like an FAQ page it's pretty good for staff. I think you could use it for students. I have not done that. You can create things like a podcast. If you want a podcast about your student handbook, 2 people have not ever been more excited to talk about it. That can be really fun to listen to. It can be helpful too for people that are audio learners. I have just put really dull things in Notebook LM, like research papers, and made a podcast. Usually they're about 10 minutes, and listen to that instead of reading the really boring thing. It makes all these things. The infographics are pretty good. It'll make you a little mind map that you can keep expanding. That's kind of fun. So Notebook LM on its own is a really great resource. But in the last couple of minutes, I want to show you how we're going to smush these all together and throw Canva in the mix and come out with the funnest little AI birthday cake you've ever seen. Okay, So who has used Gemini Gems? This one also is pretty. You can create custom GPTs in ChatGPT, like I said, with a paid account, but I'm still not paying for anything because I'm cheap. So Gems are fun. If you are just in Gemini, right under new chat and my stuff, you find Gems. The top row are pre-made Google Gems. So Storybook Creator is really fun. In fact, if you want to spend, can I get any of the old ones I've made? So it'll keep track, the gems keep track of what you've made. So we made this one for an elementary music class. So Storybook Creator will create storybooks about what you want it to be. They're not editable very well, so results may vary. It's fun if you create a storybook, then you can say, make the storybook into a coloring book. You can download that as a PDF. Students can have fun with that. If you want to spend 99 cents, you can find the book that my son wrote on Storybook on Amazon Kindle called The 67-Day Christmas Countdown. So if you have a middle schooler, you know why he chose that. So Storybook Creator is a stock gem, but you can make custom gems. So if you make a new gem, like I made one for creating PD as an example. This is as if, so if you make a prompt, you need to use it one time, that's awesome. What if you make a prompt and you want to use it over and over? You're like, that one is pretty good. I've got it just how I want it. And now you have to go back and find it over and over again and say, okay, do that again. Okay, do that again. This is the okay, do that again button. You take that prompt, get it just right, save it in a gem, and now all you have to do is go back and say, create a PD plan. So I put a prompt in here to create an agenda for professional development. I always wanted to follow the NSQ standards. I want to create a Google sign-in form, and I always need to collect their PIC number. So that's, always. So then let's experiment with it and say, create PD about elementary course design. Let's see if it will work from this page. Sometimes not. Especially when it's in Canvas mode. So I tell it, okay, but we kind of need you to be bigger there. There we go, we can scroll. Okay, so it popped all that out. Obviously you would edit this, but this gives you, kind of your template, and it made me an agenda. Let me pop this out into a better spot. There we go. All right, so it created everything I said I would need. It created my workflow, it created my agenda, it created an email invitation that I would send to staff. The Google Forms thing is, it reminded me to make one. It hasn't quite gotten that integration yet. So that's a Google Gem. It's like your best prompts that are saved into a library. One tip is to have Gemini help you write that prompt. So you go in and say, I want to make a Gemini gem about this, and it will write a really detailed prompt for you. So try out Gemini Gems. They can be a huge time saver. But the last thing is, I go back here. You can really add a brain to the gem. And this is where we're in like 100% nerd mode. I told this to Kyle Wilder that I had done this for a personal application. And he's like, you're the biggest nerd I've ever met. So I take that with pride. I created an example of like, what if I wanted to make newsletter templates for the whole year for my school? So we send these out monthly. This is a total hypothetical. We send these out monthly. I want to make the templates for the whole year. And then all I have to do is put in my information and my pictures every month, send them out. So create a year's worth of templates. I had Gemini help me write this prompt. So it said, you have a role, Great Lakes Virtual Program, close enough. And no wonder it didn't get the staff names right. and you'll see it's referencing things. I'm going to do a monthly staff highlight. I don't want to double up. So you can give it knowledge. In fact, that should be on there and it was missing. So I'm going to put the newsletters into a spreadsheet, and you'll know why in a minute. So it's going to look at the past spreadsheet, or it's going to look at the spreadsheet and not repeat things that have been on there before. And then it's also going to look at our notebook LM, the FAQ that I showed you, and it's going to draw its knowledge from that. So you can give your gem some background knowledge. You can also tell it the default tool, like the example I showed you where it always creates in Canvas. You can create really amazing images. I don't have time for that today, but you should totally try it out. So you do all of this and then tell it to create the templates. We'll try a new one. We'll just do January through March. So my prompt had told it to put it in a table and the format that table should be in. It might take longer than I want it to take. All right, so you put it in there. I already did do this once. I copied the table into this spreadsheet. So you can see every row is a month and every column is one of the items that will be on my newsletter. But, you know, nobody's emailing out tables of information. Why would we want it in a table? Well, that's because Canva has this tool called Bulk Create. So if you create a Canva anything, and hopefully you all have used Canva because it's amazing and it's free for teachers. You create your newsletter and then you can link it to a spreadsheet from your Google Drive. And so this is where my events are always going to go. So I connect it to, I gotta go back to this page, the columns that are in my spreadsheet. I connect each thing, connect data to the upcoming events. I think I just disconnected it. It won't matter. I've already made it, but okay. So I have the staff highlight. I connect that to that spreadsheet. And then we say, create all of these January through June. It creates a new version of this Canva template. And you can see, let me make it a little bit bigger. Not that big. All right, so there's the January. And this is a template, right? So for one, I don't even know who Mr. Sterling is. You would fix that before you send it out, right? You can adjust the size when they don't quite fit. But it pulled things from my calendar. It put upcoming things that are coming up in my calendar. It put reminders about testing from my calendar because I told it to look at my Google Calendar. It put things from our, our FAQ that list our, yearly events. It randomly chose a staff. It picked, this is past events. So I know that okay, the holiday staff show for the newsletter, I can go find a picture of that event, put it in there. And then it made February's. It updated it for that month. It made March, etc. So I don't know if this particular example is the most, practical, but I wanted to show you a really simple way that you can take all of those things and smash them together to make something really robust, a little bit nerdy, but a huge time saver. And so I have a minute for questions.
Well, I'll leave it open a little bit longer than that, and we can go a little bit over. The next session's not till 10, so if you would like to share anything or have a question for Betsy, feel free to unmute your mic. Kara, do you want to mention about the how you guys are using Notebook LM for your EL students?
Well, I would actually put that in there because this session reminded me that a teacher had reached out in the fall to ask about using Notebook LM, which our students have access to. And so I made a note to myself to follow up with her to see how that was going. She worked with our IT specialist. And so it is possible for both the teacher and then our students have access for the students to independently use Notebook LM to help create stronger bridges across languages with the high school material specifically is where we run into some of our biggest issues with the content. So I'll circle back and let you know.
Betsy, I have a question. What about using Claude? Do you ever incorporate that?
I have used Claude. I have gotten away from him a little bit. I do know I used him a lot more in academic research and academic writing. Not for my writing, but I would put, my academic papers in there for feedback. I think it would work really well in Claude. I just haven't been in there a lot recently, especially since this newest update to Gemini. That's what I keep reaching for.
All right.
I was just going to give a plug for the gems. I have found those to be super helpful, especially for repetitive tasks, because I can go in and set up a gem, like you mentioned with your newsletters or whatever, and tell it the parameters for that or what approach I want it to take for something. And then the time that I would spend retyping those parts of a prompt, I don't have to do ever again. And that I think is a fantastic time saver, and also keeps things consistent, which I love.
I'm gonna have to try that out. I am a pretty heavy Gemini user. I should start using Notebook LM this year, and now I'm like, ooh, and I knew I could pull things up into both Gemini and Notebook LM. But like mashing the stuff together, I might have to try some of those kinds of things.
Like every couple of days, I'm like, oh, I could also put this in there. The first kind of smash I did was make like a weekly personal planner for myself, and now it just generates that every week.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Thank you, Betsy. This has been very helpful. Lots of positive comments in the chat. I also want to thank Lincoln Learning again for sponsoring the session and sharing their information. And those of you who have registered for the conference, the links to all the sessions will be sent to you probably, I don't know, but sometime next week if I don't get to it by the end of this week. So you can rewatch this session or even look at any of the others that you may have missed. So hope to see many of you on future sessions. We have 4 more today and we have 4 tomorrow. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Everybody.